What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Schrager Hour. The NFL offseason really is unlike any other sport. You invest into the combine, everything. You dive in 10 toes down. You are fully invested in Indianapolis, and then you get back and it's like, okay, now you turn the page to free agency. And all the information we got at the combine last week in Indianapolis bleeds directly into the next week of free agency. And let me explain the calendar a little bit. Yesterday, we had our franchise tag, and yesterday being Tuesday, franchise tag and transition tag deadlines. And at 4 p.m. Eastern, it was the first really mile marker of the NFL offseason as far as roster development goes. Some interesting decisions. We get the Daniel Jones transition tag. And to put this, I guess, in the most layman terms, it's basically we want to commit to you for the year, but we don't want to give you the franchise tag money. So what the transition tag money is about $8 million less. So Daniel Jones gets $37 million instead of $45 million, which would have been the franchise tag. But another team can top it. So it's not like he's exclusively to the Colts. So Indianapolis is really rolling the dice here, saying we don't think anyone's going to pay him more than 37, but we also don't want to pay him 45. And why wouldn't they want to pay him 45? Well, those $8 million can then be applied to bringing back Alec Pierce, or those $8 million can then be applied to going and acquiring Trey Hendrickson in free agency. They're rolling the dice because there is a chance another team says, you know what, Daniel Jones, we think you're worth $43 million or $44 million, and we're going to commit more than a year. We're going to commit 3 or 4 years to you. And we think that even if we give you less than 37, say a team showed up and said, we'll give you Sam Darnold's money, 33, 34, but we'll give it to you over the course of 4 years and the guarantees all in there. Would you like to sign an offer sheet here? Jones would then have to sign that deal saying, yes, I want to go be an Arizona Cardinal. I want to be a Minnesota Viking. I want to be a New York Jet. But then the Colts, because of the transition tag, have a chance and an opportunity to match that deal. And the contract's already written. So whatever that new contract that was written by this new team that's going to top the Colts 1-year offer or get something in print that is something that he deems better that he's going to sign with, the Colts then have the ability to say, you know what? We are going to match that exact deal and you will remain an Indianapolis Colts quarterback. So it's one of those deals where it's like, we love you, sort of. Do it again for another year. And if someone else loves you more, well, then you're going to test us whether we love you that much. That was the big one. And it's really how it starts. There's a carousel. And I always try to, give it that carousel analogy. But you've got all these different horses on the carousel ride. And there's all these different teams, right? There's 32 starting quarterbacks, but if you really think about it, there's 40 quarterbacks because there's usually 8 elite, 1As. That's a Mac Jones or a Jacoby Brissett or a Joe Flacco. There's usually about 40 different guys who people view as quarterbacks in this league. You add in the draft prospects, and this year, I'd say Mendoza and Ty Simpson and maybe Drew Aller and Carson Becker in that conversation as 4 guys who would be in the mix as first, second, or third round picks. Suddenly you've got 40 different seats and you've got to fill them all. Supply and demand. So then you go through the list of the different quarterbacks. Kyler Murray is, to me, the most attractive quarterback option on the market right now. And it's not because of Kyler's amazing playoff heroics or Kyler's durability or Kyler's upside. It's because of Kyler's cost right now. The Arizona Cardinals have decided to eat just about all of Kyler Murray's remaining money on this contract, meaning they're going to release him, all the guaranteed money he's due. They're just going to eat it, just like the Denver Broncos did for that year when Russell Wilson paid for about $1 million for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're going to say, all right, hand up. The financial ramifications of the next 2 years to keep Kyler on this roster are just too much. We'll eat this year. We'll take it on the chin. We'll go from there. On the other end, it makes Kyler a very attractive free agent option because at 28 years old, all the money is offset, meaning he could sign a veteran minimum and the Arizona Cardinals are still going to be paying him all this guaranteed money. A lot of money terms, a lot of legality terms, a lot of high finance terms there. In truth, what I'm trying to say is this. Kyler Murray can sign a $1.3 million deal, which is a veteran minimum for that quarterback position, $1.3 million, and still make about $40 million next year, which if I'm Kyler, you are in the driver's seat and the carousel really picks up based on what you want to do. So where would you go? What teams would be willing? I think the Minnesota Vikings make a ton of sense for both sides. I really do. For $1.3 million for a year in what will end up being a prove-it year for Kyler, say he signs a 1-year, $1.3 million deal with the Minnesota Vikings. You plop him in that quarterback room. You've got J.J. McCarthy now with a bit of a fire lit under him going into year 3, but it's not a sure thing. It's not a sure thing that Kyler Murray is the number one. Absolutely not. Not at that number. It's very similar to Sam Darnold and J.J. McCarthy 2 years ago. They both went into training camp. The assumption was Sam Darnold would win that job, but it was going to be J.J.'s eventually. J.J. unfortunately got injured, and it became Sam Darnold's job, and you know what happened from there. He had one of the all-time great regular seasons for a Minnesota Vikings quarterback, parlayed that into the Seahawks. We can go down that story 30 times over. If I'm Kyler Murray, I am looking at that guy, Sam Darnold, and I'm saying, put me in that incubator. Put me in that situation with Kevin O'Connell and Josh McCown and Wes Phillips and Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and whoever else is involved in making that machine hum. Put me in that Sam Darnold role where you drop me into that building and you let me prove myself to the rest of the NFL. I think Minnesota is a quarterback away. Is Kyler the guy? Maybe. But if I'm them at $1.3 million, and then you also have J.J. McCarthy, and they're just competing. You don't promise the number one job to either one of them. You compete, and you let the chips fall as they may. What about another opportunity for Kyler? What if Kyler was to look at the Miami Dolphins and say, hey, look, I know you just got out of this Tua contract. You don't have to pay me anything. Give me $1.3 million. I'll go to Miami, sunny weather. I'll run around. I'll throw the ball. I'll rehab my career, and we'll figure it out with the Miami Dolphins. I don't see the Jets as somewhere where he would choose to go. I don't think Pittsburgh makes a ton of sense based on what we think is a flirtation with Aaron Rodgers that's going to turn into a potential reunion there between Mike McCarthy and Rodgers. To me, I look at those two cities right now, Minnesota and Miami, if I'm Kyler Murray. That chip is an important one in all this because then you've got the pure free agents, guys that are interesting to me. Malik Willis is interesting to me. Very limited action in the regular season. And in that limited action looked excellent against the Baltimore Ravens at home on a Saturday night in a game in which they lost. But Malik Willis played really well for the Green Bay Packers. You go back down to that Miami connection. Jeff Hafley was a defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers the last 2 years while Malik Willis was up there. In a typical practice, the twos on offense will usually play against the ones on defense. The ones on offense will play against the twos on defense. Who was the two on offense for the Green Bay Packers at quarterback for the last 2 years? Malik Willis. If anybody knows what Willis's upside is, what Willis's day-to-day is, what Willis's work ethic is, it's Jeff Hafley. I'll go one further with that. John Eric Sullivan is the general manager. He was part of the group that acquired Malik Willis from Tennessee and brought him to Green Bay. So now you have a coach and a GM, both who know way more about Malik Willis than anyone else in the league, and they're down there in control in Miami. The problem might be the financials. Malik Willis could end up making 30, 32, 35, 38. I don't know. If there's a market for Malik Willis, they could look at him and say, here is a raw piece of clay that has just enough NFL experience who is ready to hit it as a starting quarterback. So what teams would that be? Are the New York Jets interested in Malik Willis? How about the Arizona Cardinals? You move on from Kyler Murray, you're going to be paying him quite a bit. Do you say, okay, we're going to say Matt LaFleur is the head coach up in Green Bay. His little brother, Mike LaFleur, is now the new head coach in Arizona. There has to be some dialogue there. If Matt LaFleur loved Malik Willis, Mike LaFleur probably would enjoy having an opportunity to coach him as well. And they have a giant vacancy at quarterback. Is that a place where he goes? Malik Willis is interesting. So let's go through the names here. We have Daniel Jones. We have Kyler Murray. You have Malik Willis. And then you get to other guys. Geno Smith. Is he going to stick around in Vegas if they're drafting Fernando Mendoza? Or if they say, hey, let's release Geno Smith, we'll eat some of that cost, he's going to be a free agent. Is that not a viable, cheaper, veteran option to play at quarterback? Okay, what about Joe Flacco? Don't laugh. Flacco was awesome last year for Cincinnati in a pinch. They went and they got him from Cleveland, and he won a Thursday night game against Pittsburgh on like 3 days with the team, and really threw the ball well until Joe Burrow got back. He was a Pro Bowler. I know, roll your eyes. But he was a Pro Bowler for the first time in his 18-year NFL career. Joe Flacco still wants to play quarterback. That's interesting to me. How about Kirk Cousins? Played well last year. Beat the Rams in a huge Monday night game. They won 4 straight to finish the season. Kirk Cousins was really good in those games. He can still play football. At what cost does he want to play football? Who's going to bring him in? He's got a relationship with O'Connell up there in Minnesota. Can we have a reunion there? I don't see it as the Jets. I'll be honest. Here's why. This is when it gets to that next level. A couple years back, Kirk Cousins was a free agent looking for guaranteed money in his contract as a quarterback. It was something that was very rarely done, something that hadn't really been done. It was before Deshaun Watson's deal. And it came down to Minnesota and the Jets. And his agent was bouncing Minnesota off New York off Minnesota. New York got to this point. It looked like he was going to go to the Jets. And then he got that money from Minnesota and he left the Jets at the altar. Owners don't forget. Teams don't forget. I don't know if this would be some happy ending where they bring in Kirk Cousins to the New York Jets. I don't see that one. But I could see him being a viable free agent in several different NFL markets, either as a guy who challenges the one or as a veteran number 2. How about Kenny Pickett? It's a name. Guy could still play. He's young. He's not a number 1. But is he someone that you can bring in as a quarterback to challenge? Of course he is. Justin Fields. He's currently got another year left with the Jets. Do the Jets say, let's move on from this. Let's just get ourselves out of this Justin Fields contract. It's not so prohibitive to us, but maybe we give him another shot. Does the team give Justin Fields one? Russell Wilson. Is Russell Wilson someone that has another year or 2 left in him? You go through these names. This is the quarterback carousel, and it's kind of like teams are waiting on the other teams, and some are going to be aggressive. Some are going to sit back and kick back and wait. But I love this. I think it's fun, and I'm honored. I'm going to be a part of a really interesting broadcast Monday and Tuesday. Monday at noon Eastern, when all this stuff starts, the free agency legal tampering period, which is basically free agency begins. I'm going to be in Indianapolis in Pat McAfee's Thunderdome with Boston Connor and Ty Schmidt and Pat and Gump and all those guys. We're going to be together. And at noon, it's like the ball dropping in Times Square. Free agency begins, and I'm going to be flanked by Adam Schefter, Pat McAfee, and Dan Orlovsky. And we're doing our 2-hour show live there from Indianapolis as all hell breaks loose. Hand up here. I'm not going to have the news that Schefter has, but I will be plugged in and I will give you color on all of these different free agent signings that are going to happen. And there will be several. This is how it goes. It's usually like floodgates the first hour. Then it's another wave in the next hour. And then it kind of chills out. And there's a couple overnight. And then day 2, you get a bunch more. So the first 2 days, Monday and Tuesday, I'll be in Indianapolis. And I think it's going to be a wild ride as far as free agency goes with those signings. I did want to bring up a couple things in regards to the draft because we get back from the combine. I think the Raiders are completely tied to Mendoza. I think that is a done deal. Mendoza won to the Raiders. I don't know if it's public. I think it's public. He had a meeting with the Raiders and they put Brady on FaceTime and they had a really awesome conversation, Mendoza and Brady. So we know that's at least been, that seal has been cracked or whatever you want to call it. Like that seal's been broken. They at least have had contact one-on-one and it's been legal and everything's good there. The Jets are at 2. The Jets have the 2nd pick. The Jets have the 16th pick. The Jets have the 33rd pick. The Jets have a couple other picks on day 2. They have 3 first-round picks next year. I love Mendoza to the Raiders. I do. I love Mendoza to the Jets. I think both those franchises would be bowled over to have a guy who took Indiana on its back and brought them to the national championship and won a Heisman and said, all right, I know you guys had this year before me that you had some great success, but I'm going to get you over the top. I'm going to lead you there and do so with a manner of humility and leadership and I would just say overall self-awareness. I mean, the guy's comfortable in his skin. We know that. We've seen some of these interviews. He never backs away from any of it. And I think that like that's what you kind of need if you're the Raiders or the Jets franchise, and it's decades and decades of just failure. If I am the Jets, I am packaging multiple first-round picks this year's draft, throwing in another first-round pick for next year's draft, and I'm throwing every offer I can for Fernando Mendoza in that one pick. You cannot wait and assume that Arch Manning will be there next year. If you're assuming that, you are assuming that you're going to be the worst team in football, which very well might likely mean your head coach is not going to be around to coach that. Your offensive coordinator is not going to be around to coach that. Potentially your GM, if you have another year like you had last year, who knows? Maybe they pull a plug on him. You can't bank on anything with Woody Johnson. And you can't assume tanking is a real option. You also can't assume Arch Manning is that guy. Last year at this time, I was doing I was doing NFL Network, Good Morning Football. But we were talking about the quarterback situation and how is Cam Ward really that guy? Is Jackson Dart that? Is Shador that guy? Well, if you wait next year, you can get Cade Klubnik. And if you wait next year, you can get, Nussmeier, Garrett Nussmeier, or Drew Aller. It's going to be a great, didn't come to fruition. So my point is this. If you are the Raiders and you think Mendoza is that dude, take Mendoza, don't look back. If you are the Jets and you think Mendoza is that dude, and I think he is, offer the farm. What are we doing? Offer the farm. I know that is not prudent. I know it's not my team, but I think Fernando Mendoza with the New York Jets would be an amazing match. Think about the parallel histories of Indiana football and New York Jets football. Think about Fernando Mendoza's personality and this media market. Do you think Fernando Mendoza is going to be, wowed by the glitz and glamour of New York City? Do you think Fernando Mendoza is going to be out late trying to, be in the mix at the fancy restaurants and clubs? I think Fernando Mendoza is trying to get in to Chez Margot or the 86 or the Corner Store. These are the hot restaurants in New York. No. Fernando Mendoza is cool having DoorDash and relaxing with teammates and chilling out and doing his thing and being all about ball. And that's what the Jets need. So my plea to the Jets, and I know a lot of Jets fans listen to this, take a shot. Swing for the fences. If you think Mendoza's that guy, and I do, you have 5 first-round picks in the next 2 years. Make an offer. See what's there. Open the dialogue. And if the Raiders say no, the Raiders say no. But it didn't hurt to ask. Quick story before we get to our guest. Last week, Friday, I'm doing McAfee show. And as I'm waiting to go on, there's a big contingent from the New Jersey Devils in Olympic hockey. And Jack Hughes is there, who's the star gold medal winning game golden goal scorer. And I'm like a kid in a candy store. I'm like, do I run over to him? Do I ask for a photo? What's appropriate? Schefter and I are waiting just in the wings because we're going to do NFL Live and I'm doing McAfee. And I'm just like, let's go for it. We go right over to him. We're like, dude, amazing. Congrats. We spoke for 30 minutes with this kid. Cool as hell. Poised, funny. Then he goes on McAfee. I think it's one of the best 60 minutes of an interview you've seen between interviewer and it's the collective of McAfee and a subject. Go watch that interview if you can. It was last Friday on McAfee. And it's Jack Hughes, and he's taking you into the locker room. He's taking you into the dorm room. He's taking you to his experiences on the lake with Hellebuck that they do in the off season. They live on the same lake, the goalie and him. And it's like, gosh, this kid is a superstar. But then came the moment of truth. Jack Hughes is there, no tooth, the whole deal. He's got the gold medal. And I went for it. You want to take a pic? I've never asked for a selfie. I don't do this. He's like, yes, let's do it. And then Jack Hughes put the gold medal around my neck like I'm a 12-year-old girl. I'm ecstatic right here. I'm just giggling. I'm looking at this kid like he's my boyhood idol. Jack Hughes puts the medal on heavy. And then I'm like, is it bad luck to put on someone else's gold medal? And I was like, I don't care. Maybe it's bad luck if you're Michelle Kwan and you've never won the gold medal. I'm not Michelle Kwan. I'm not competing anytime soon for a gold medal. I smiled there, proudly took that photo, slapped that on Instagram, enjoyed 98% of positivity, 2% of some really angry people out there who at the time were upset with Jack Hughes over politics, stuff that I mean, I don't think you can be upset with a 24-year-old who's got his tooth knocked out, who's had a golden goal. But hey, live your life, man. Be upset with Jack Hughes. I loved it. The kid was awesome. We exchanged numbers. I'm like being prudent about how to text him and how often to text him. Texted him one thing over the weekend. He texted right back. Guys, that kid's a superstar. I'm a Jack Hughes fan. And that's the beauty of the NFL Combine. It brings us all together. So excited for our next guest. Matt Patricia is the defensive coordinator of the Ohio State Buckeyes. He's also a longtime pal of mine and a guy whose opinion I not only respect, but who I go to often to just talk football. I think he's one of the smartest football minds there is, and he's been in a lot of different spots and seen a lot of different things. And now that he's in Columbus, Ohio, he's got some thoughts on some of these draft prospects that absolutely blew away the Combine. Matt Patricia up next. With no further ado, I'm smiling here because he looks just happy. He looks refreshed. He looks healthy. And he's got that Ohio State hat on. Longtime NFL coach and now the defensive coordinator of the Ohio State Buckeyes, Matt Patricia. Welcome to the Schrager Hour.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's so great to see you, brother. Miss you, and I'm just so appreciative to be on the show. I got the Buckeye helmet going on, the sweatshirt, the hoodie. So we're rocking the Buckeyes right now.
You look great. We're going to talk Buckeyes in a second, but I ended my monologue talking about Jack Hughes, and you were listening in, and I think we have a shared experience here. One of the stories that I will tell, and I told it to Jack Hughes, is that, I woke my son up early Sunday morning that morning because the game started at 8 o'clock a.m. Eastern, and I'm like, let's watch this. Little did I realize they were going to win, but at the end of it, I thought about it because I was like, that might be a sporting event that maybe we don't talk about every day, but we'll forever remember watching together. And you're 9 and like he's old enough to remember it. Did you watch the game, and did you have an experience with your kids watching the game?
Yeah, same experience, and so cool. Like I remember the 1980 Olympic Games and growing up in New York with Lake Placid being in, upstate New York. So I remember that experience. It's something that, is just as a child, it's one of those memories that will never leave you. And funny enough, 2 weeks prior to that game this past year, I had my sons watch Miracle. They hadn't watched it before. So getting into the Olympic spirit, getting ready for hockey, and then 100% went in, woke my kids up. It's Sunday morning. I'm like, we're going to go watch the game. We sat on the couch and screamed and yelled and cheered. And what an amazing memory, 46 years to the day to have that shared experience with my kids, the same as what I had in 1980. I mean, just so cool.
Because you grew up, I know you're not from Lake Placid, but you grew up there in upstate New York. So that might have been right. Well, that was what, in your backyard, I guess.
Yeah, right outside Syracuse, New York. So, I mean, just a few hours away for those Olympics. And, you felt the energy of certainly at that time,
How old were you? I'm not trying to age you. Were you like a teenager?
I mean, I was, almost double digits at that point.
Okay, so this is a memory that you actually have. That's the thing. It's like, it's one thing to be 2 years old, but then you actually remember watching, because they say it was on tape delay, but like you remember watching.
Yeah, I do. I just remember just that environment, that excitement. I was probably a little bit younger than where my kids are now, but it's one of those things I think sticks with you. And I think, it's probably one of those deals where as a youngster, you're watching that and you're saying, okay, I know this is going on, but you don't really understand the significance until later. And you're like, wait, I remember that moment. And then it builds and you have that great story that you're able to share with your kids.
One of the funny things is that like, it wasn't, the USA, they actually beat Finland in the finals in that 1980, right? They beat Canada. And I asked Hughes about it, and he was like, no, that was everything. Like, yeah, we beat Sweden in a great match and we beat Slovakia, but like to beat them, and like there is no love lost between that USA Canada rivalry right now. And it's kind of great for the sport, but it's also really cool for us as bystanders and watching it as fans.
Well, I think, if you go back to last year, they had the 4-nation tournament, which was actually kind of in Boston and then Canada and back and forth. And that energy, the fights, the excitement, all of that, you couldn't wait to get to this year's Olympics because you knew it was just going to roll over into that sort of excitement.
Speaking of excitement, Combine, I'm there Thursday night. And I've done a lot of these. I know there's a lot of articles this week being like, the Combine is done as a TV product. It's too boring. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm sitting there in the building and Sonny Styles lines up and does what he does. And I'm blown away. And I said afterwards, like, The famous quote is Dave Gettleman talking about Daniel Jones after the draft. He said he fell in full bloom love with Daniel. I came on the show on Friday. I'm like, I fell in love last night. I'm in love with this Sonny Styles, and I didn't know enough about him. Take us through your relationship with Sonny, what you know about Sonny, and then your reaction seeing him absolutely dominate the combine in a way that I don't think any single defensive player ever has.
Yeah, well, I fell in love with those kids last year when I walked in the door here. I think right away, Caleb Downs, Sonny, Lorenzo, Arvell Reese, Caden Curry, all of those kids, when you walk in the meeting room right away and you see their youthful energy and joy for the love of the game of football, you're like, all right, this is going to be a fun group to work with. So it was great to see that happen in Indianapolis, and to watch. Really, it started with the vertical. As the rest of the groups were running the 40s, the linebackers started to do their jumps. And so I'm looking across the field and I'm watching Sonny and Arvell because they stand out. They're 6'5", 6'4". They're huge, right? So I'm watching Sonny get ready to do his vertical, and you see him go up and you kind of see that area just erupt, right? So everyone starts cheering. You're like, okay, he's doing his jump. Then he does his broad jump. And so now you felt that energy just move across the building. And now everyone's lining up to do the 40s. And it just was such a cool thing to watch, and certainly, to experience Arvell, Reese, who's phenomenal, right? So he runs first. To watch him run, take off, have a great 40, but then to look at Sonny and see that seriousness come over his face because they are so competitive with each other. And then to watch him get down and just blow it away with those two just, I call them my creatures, my monsters. Those two linebackers just run. It was pretty unbelievable and such a special night. But you could feel that energy pick back up in the building of everyone like, oh, we got some dudes now. We got to watch these guys.
I saw a great thing online. I'm going to read it to you. So this is on Sonny Styles. He's 6'5", which is the same height as Calvin Johnson. He's 245 pounds, which is the same weight as Derrick Henry. He jumped a 43.5-inch vertical, which is what Nate Robinson, the great NBA dunker, jumped as his max vertical. Ran a 4.46 which is what Bijan Robinson ran. And he had a 135 broad jump, 13.5 broad jump, same as Julio Jones. Tell me, you see this guy every day. Is it as freakish as it seemed?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to get him back to school. I mean, we got to change his name. We got to do something. I need him back. Like
Joe Styles.
Yeah. I mean, certainly, Sonny and Arvell, the way to be able to utilize them that I was, had the luxury to do last year was so much fun. And when you have guys that are that big, that fast, that athletic, and have that explosive power and violence that they both have. I mean, it just was, it was a gift. So to watch those guys show out certainly at the combine was not unexpected. That's what we saw all the way through the season. And you saw those glimpses on the field, certainly at game day. But that's all the stuff we saw during practice, too. I mean, you could see those guys fly around. I mean, I've got a clip of practice of Arvell. I mean, I think he looks like he's jumped 5 feet in the air wearing a red zone practice drill. And it's just when you got guys like that, you can do a lot of things. So they're such a joy to coach.
Off the field, tell me, we're going to go to Arvell in a second, but tell me about Sonny Styles off the field. If you're a team with a top 10 pick, what are you getting as a person?
Yeah, when you talk Sonny and Lorenzo, to me, you got to start with their mom and dad. Laverna, Lorenzo, great parents, raised two amazing young men, heavy into faith, which, just they are such a joy every day when they walk in the building. And Sonny is, he's big, Lorenzo's older, but Sonny's bigger. And when he walks in, he commands the room. He has that respect of his teammates, not only because of his physical size and his play on the field, but the way he carries himself every single day. And he is who he says he is. And I think that's one of the things that's so special about him and his brother. But I go right back to mom and dad. I think they did an amazing job raising two special young men and just made it a joy to coach. So when you take Sonny Styles, you are taking the face of your franchise. And that's what you look for in a first round draft pick. When you are taking guys that high in the draft, you want them to be the face of the franchise. And that is someone, Sonny Styles, that you are going to send every time to whatever event it is, with the ownership, with, management, whatever needs to be done for the franchise. He's a guy that's going to do that. So not only on the field, all that stuff is great, what he does, how he learns, but his future, both, in the organization is great. I had a lot of coaches come up to me during the combine and they're like, is he going to be running for presidents? I mean, because he has that presence.
He's got some presence, huh?
He has a presence about him.
And I think that's a great question because, like, here's the other part of it. And you were in the NFL for so long. Value positions are defensive end, left tackle, quarterback, and your star corner. That's what you take. Those are the one. What he plays, which is kind of an off-ball linebacker, doesn't really add up with that. And yet there are some rare talents that you say, screw it, give me the best player. Is he worthy of that caliber reach of, hey, maybe he doesn't play left tackle or a pure pass rushing defensive end, but you put him on your team gets better overnight.
Yeah, generally you look in the draft, early in the draft, all right, I'm going to draft somebody that scores touchdowns or prevents touchdowns, one way or another. Whether it's a quarterback that throws it, a receiver that catches it, or a defensive back that can cover guys, or a defensive pass rusher that can disrupt the quarterback. But a Sonny Styles is different. That's a guy that sits in the middle of your defense, is the leader of your defense, runs your defense for about 12 to 14 years or whenever he decides he's not playing anymore. And then you see those legacy videos of the great Mike linebackers that ran those phenomenal defenses that we've seen through the years, and becomes the leader and embodiment of what the organization is. So you take those guys because they're rare. They don't come up that often. And he's one of those guys.
I'm thinking and if you're going to draft someone in the top 10, Luke Kuechly, was that right? He was drafted in the top 10 by Carolina. Roquan, I think, was a top 10 pick. It's very rare you get that inside linebacker, but if he's that guy and it's a draft where it's not overly loaded with left tackles and wide receivers, I think why not if you're a team with the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pick?
I think if you're looking at that, that pick and that standpoint of like, all right, I need a guy that's going to be, you want your first round draft pick to be there for a while. So I want a guy that's going to be in this organization for a long time that we're going to want to always renew and keep here. He checks all those boxes. So it just, from that standpoint, it makes it an easy decision.
Let's go to Reese, because a lot of Jets fans listen to this, a lot of Cardinals fans, a lot of Titans fans. We're assuming Mendoza goes 1. Make the case for Reese as worthy of a number 2 overall pick and the best pass rusher in this draft.
Yeah, one of my favorite guys to be around.
You
cannot. I mean, I have great guys. I mean, Caleb, Sonny, all of them. But
and you've had such amazing guys.
I'm telling you, Arvell has this unbelievable. When you see him, I smile. I can't help it.
Tell me about him. I don't know him at all.
He's quiet when you meet him at first, but once you get to know him, once he opens up, he's got this amazing personality. He's just a joy. You have so much fun. He's a sponge. He wants to learn. He hadn't played a lot of football here. I walked in the building and he hadn't done much. And I was like, okay, who's that? And I know what to do with him. Give him to me. Let me, make him one of those free. And he played off the ball. When you watch his on the line of scrimmage work, and I think that's what everyone's trying to figure out right now, his ability to set the edge of the defense, his explosive power that you see on tape, his ability to run, speed to power pass rush, compress the pocket from the backside. It's pretty rare and it's pretty special. Now you put him in those different multiple roles. We were able to stand him up. We played him off the ball on early downs, but on third downs, we put those packages in where he walks up over a guard. He walks up over a center. Now he's running pick games. Now he's running the pass rush communication. He did all of that. So you're saying, okay, I've got a guy that's not only going to play on the edge, but now a guy that can move into multiple positions, create a lot of different disruptive problems for the offensive line and attack protection. Those guys are rare. Those are the guys that get to the quarterback. So those are the guys you take early.
Dude, you're talking about these guys. I'm so happy for you personally. You sound so proud and so excited to even talk about these guys. Reese is going to be put up against Bain and Bailey as the 2 other pass rushers that are really being looked at as that 2 overall pick. The early read on the Bailey versus Reese thing, Bailey's more polished. Bailey's got a more decorated college career. Reese has the bigger upside. How good can Reese be?
Yeah, I would say the sky's the limits. The thing about Arvell that's different is Arvell can play multiple positions. So it's not just locked in. We know how it goes in the NFL. Like if you sit in one position, you're going against pretty good players. Those offensive tackles, those guys are legit. They're big, they're long, they're strong. The slides, the protection systems, the way the quarterback can manipulate mic points. It's really hard if you're kind of a one position guy. You better be that dynamic edge rusher. Arvell is learning to be that and has so much upside with that. Plus, early in his career, you can put him in a bunch of different spots and then watch that production just, be creative with the way that you use them. So I think that's the value to me that says the upside is really, it's unlimited as far as what you can do with them. So I love those type of guys. We've had a lot of success with those type of guys.
Yes, you have. All right, Caleb Downs, take us through him. This is a guy who I knew at Alabama years ago and now comes to Ohio State, has this incredible career. Again, not a premium position if you're going to use him at safety, but one of these rare talents where you say, I saw Mel Kiper had him at number 2 overall going to the Jets. How good is Caleb Downs?
Yeah, he's going to be the smartest player in the draft. He is 100% going to come out and be the smartest player you talk to in the interview room. So immediately you are impressed. He is the face of the franchise. As great of a football player is, he's a better human being. So that's the type of guy that you love to be around. This type of guy all the time. He wants to learn. He's always trying to make himself better. He is like having a coach on the field. The one thing about Caleb that grabs you right away when you start to talk to him is a lot of young football players, you may talk ball and you may have a concept and they kind of are with you as a coach, but you probably got to draw it on the board. Caleb is step for step. He sees it just like you see it. It's in front of him all the time. So he can move those chess pieces around just like you can. And a lot of times it's great. We'd be in games and I'd be thinking something. I'd be like, hey, I'm kind of thinking. He's like, I'm already with you.
You would go to him for counsel.
Yeah, you're going to rely on the players. I don't play. It's great for me to look out there and say, hey, let's do this, but I'm not out there. That's no good. He's out there. He's in the mix. So I will go to him and be like, what do you think about this? Can we do that? And he's like, I don't like that, but we can definitely do this. And I'm like, great. And we got hand signals. So there's a lot of times he'd be on the field and we'd be hand signaling each other. And he's like, yes. And I'd be like, great. So we go to a different call. We go to a different disguise. And he has that in-game ability to adjust just like a coach. So, again, when you're talking about stepping it up to the next level, a guy with the skill set that can play in the box, has great run instincts, can blitz, can cover, can play man-to-man, played in the deep part of the field. When I got here, we talked and he said, one of the things I want to do is play a little bit more in the deep part of the field because he's got great vision break. So we put him back there. He, owns the deep part of the field, picked off a ball to end the game, and then, put him in those positions where he can freelance a little bit, some off the edge, some inside. He picked off a ball from the line of scrimmage. You know how hard that is. You're in the line of scrimmage, you drop out, jumps up, grabs
What game is that? We're going to find the clip.
Yeah, that was early. It might have been Grambling. And then I set that one up later, and then I sent him through the middle a couple weeks later, and he sacks the quarterback. And that was another, might have been Rutgers. But just that sort of dynamic playmaking ability is what he has.
You might get 3 of your players that you had going in the top 10 of the NFL draft on the defensive side of the ball. When you walked in last year, did you think this is a possibility?
When I walked in here last year, they had a great defense the year before, and they had, whatever it was, 8 guys drafted or, off of the roster. So we were starting over. It was like we only have 3 guys that have actually played a lot of football. So to be able to sit in a situation now where I think we have, it might be 8 guys right now that will play in the NFL next year off of a defense that, only had 3 returning starters. That's pretty awesome. And I think that's the part where I've just found that excitement where I'm trying to help kids. I just want to help these guys have a future, and to see, 3 guys get picked in the top 10 would be amazing, or just even in the first round overall, to see these guys have an opportunity to go to the NFL and hopefully stay in the NFL, because that's the difference. You got to stay there. Everyone, a lot of guys can get there, but how do you stay there? That to me is, that's my why. That's why I started coaching. That's my joy. And I'm really excited for these guys.
I'm going to name a couple guys. Just give me, 10 seconds on each. Caden Curry.
Caden Curry, another one of my favorite football players. He played very similar to Rob Ninkovich, who was a very productive player for me in the NFL, has that multiplicity of playing on the edge. He can stop the run. He can pass rush. He can drop into coverage. He's just we would say he's a ball playing Jesse, like back in the day. Like that's what he is. The other part of this that's really important for these guys as they go into their NFL careers that people don't understand, special teams. You have to play special teams. This guy comes in day one and starts for you on your punt protection, which is going to be your most important special teams. Go down, cover. This guy, all that we'd be watching tape, and I would just pause the tape. A lot of times the defense, I'm like, that's a good football player right there. Like, that's a good football play. That's a smart
play.
football play. He's a ball player. So I'm excited. I'm really excited for him. I think he, makes the team. He impacts, whether it's third down, early downs right away, special teams. And he's just one of those really solid, fundamental football players you have on your roster.
How about IGB?
Yeah, what an unbelievable just talent, right? So big, long, strong corner. They're rare to find. The thing that was great about him, if you watch his tape, he came back 2 things: decrease the penalties, play the run. He makes some tackles in the run game. He throws his body in there. He is a big guy, and he just knocks it down. He's on the backside, a lot of those what we call nub formations, tight end only side, and he's fitting that C gap. He's getting those backs down. And then, to go out and play the way that he played fundamentally with his technique, real patient, patient at the point of attack, patient when the ball was in the air, decrease those penalties. I think he showed a lot this year. So that's another really good player.
My last one, Kayden McDonald.
Yeah, K-Mac, strong in the middle. That was his job. I walked in, big dude, obviously strong, young guy. I said to him, you have to be strong in the middle of this defense. If this defense is going to go, it's got to be strong in the middle, and that's got to be you. And I thought he just took that and ran. You see some games where, we try to do some things to get him singled up, and he's just knocking the middle of the offensive line back. So that was great to really watch him. He hadn't played that much, and to see him play down in, down out, and just control all of that up front, it really set us up to be, the defense that we could be this year.
You were around Brady. You were around Stafford. You've been around a lot of great Jalen Hurts. You've been around a lot of great NFL quarterbacks. You coached against Mendoza. What did you make of Mendoza? Does he have the stuff? And is he someone that you would vouch for if an NFL team asked you and said, is he worthy of a first overall pick?
Yeah, I think so. You have to say yes. I actually met him 2 summers ago at the Manning Passing Academy.
I love this. Tell the story. I love it.
I mean, maybe I wasn't really sure what I was doing. Maybe I was scouting. You don't know. I was hanging out.
Just hey, I found myself here in southern Mississippi. I'm just here.
Who doesn't just go to Tupelo, Mississippi for or whatever? I mean, actually, it was Louisiana. We were in
whatever
Archie,
it is.
Yeah, Archie invited me down. Peyton, Eli, great family, great people. So I was like, great. I'm not doing anything. Let me come down. He comes up to me. He was a huge Pats fan, and we just started talking. And it was like instantly right away. I was like, he was at Cal, and I was like, this guy's really smart. This guy sees the game. He understands things. And he's tall. He has great presence. So I'm like, all right, he's going to be able to see over. He just looked different than everybody else. There's a lot of quarterbacks that are just, not as tall. They can't see over the offensive line. So I started watching him mechanically, and then obviously playing him this year. He's smart. He does a great job. He's so efficient with the football. I think that's the biggest thing you see right away. His arm talent is excellent. His ability to move in the pocket is great. And the bottom line is he's tough as nails, man. I tried to hit him.
You did.
We did. The first Caden Curry literally hit him as hard as he
could. Miami did too.
I know, and he just keeps coming. And I think that's the quality when you say, all right, I need a quarterback that has all this, but it's tough. Like Matt Stafford's one of the toughest people I've ever been around, right? This guy is like tough beyond tough, right? So if you're an offensive line, if you're a wide receiver and your quarterback is tough, well, man, you got to go out and play. Like, you got to step it up. So he has that trait. He has that quality about him, along with all the quarterback stuff, the mental, his ability to be accurate with the ball and get it in the tight windows. You take the guy. You take him.
I love you as a college coach. I miss you in the NFL, but I do love you as a college coach. Get me inside a living room and Matt Patricia is recruiting a prospect. Did you have any of those situations this offseason where you had to go win a kid over with the parents?
Yeah. Recruiting.
Not even Matt Patricia, but what's the Ohio State case that is made?
Yeah, I would say, recruiting was great. I mean, I love the part of the job where the relationships and you meet people, and certainly recruiting, that's what you're doing. You're going out. I think the biggest shock for me, though, honestly, was I would get with a lot of these kids. I'm like, and I'd be sitting there talking like, how old are you again? And, they're like, I'm 16, I'm 17. And my son's like 15 years old. And I'm like, It just clicked to me. I was like, okay, if I'm about to hand my kid off, my son, to a stranger, at 16, I need to know who he is. So for me, it was more just like, let them know who I am, let them know what I'm about, and that really aligns with what Ohio State is about. We're about development. We're about, trying to make sure everyone's being the best version of themselves, both on and off the field. And that's easy. That's not a sell. That's not a recruiting pitch. It's just like, this is what we want. This is my why anyways, why I coach. So I want you to be the best football player. I want you to be the best person you can be. I talk about mind, body, spirit all the time. We're developing your mind, we're developing your body, and we're going to develop, the spiritual side, whatever that is, emotional development, which is so important right now. So to me, it's just about building those relationships, having fun, meeting and making sure the parents understand what we're about so they can trust us with their kids. But watching these guys come in every day and we're working out. We had mat drills this morning. We're getting ready for spring ball. And to see them grow and see them mature, it is the reason I left engineering all those years ago, was to help, mentor and teach young men, because I think there's so much going on right now for us to be, that voice of stability as they grow at this age. It's a lot of fun.
I had Jeff Halfley on a couple of weeks ago, and he was raving about your head coach, Ryan Day. What do you see on a day-to-day basis that makes him a special coach?
Yeah, Ryan is just, you see it right away. The culture that he's built, the way that he pours into these kids, the way that he loves on them, wants them to do great. I just, you sit back as a former head coach, you're like, all right, let me learn. Like, let me see how he's doing things. And his leadership, the way that he runs the program, the standards that he holds the kids to, so I do think it shows a great ability, and he does a great job of saying, like, you can hold these kids accountable. You can grow them and make sure they're doing the right things and still love them at the same time and still appreciate them for being young adults. And all of that wrapped into one, I think, is just, that's, I call them superpowers. That's his superpower. His superpower is the culture that he's built, the way that the kids, work tirelessly here to be the best, to be developed, to fight to be the best version of themselves. It's pretty special. And that starts with him. Coach Day, he leads that charge every day. And I think when he sits down and talks to those guys, the kids, the players, I think you just see their focus. Like, they just look at him and you say, all right, he's got him. And we're able to, really develop him from there.
When I was at the NFL Network all those years, I would kind of be dismissive of the college game until the draft season. This year, now that I'm with ESPN, I followed it week to week, and I watched this Ohio State defense fly around. You guys are going to lose 8 players to the NFL draft. Get me excited about next year's Ohio State Buckeye defense. What do you guys have in store, and who are some of the names we should be circling now?
Yeah, we're in that process right now. We're getting ready to go. Certainly, we got a couple guys coming back. It's only like 2, but it's great. Jalen McLean, who did an unbelievable job for us in the middle of our defense, both in the deep part of the field. He's a young guy. He was kind of my welcome back to college football because I coached his dad.
Is that right? Who's his dad? Who's that?
Mo McLean. I actually have 2 guys on this roster that I coached their dads at Syracuse. So Duke Pettyjohn, his son is here. Mo McLean, his son is here. So that was my first, like, okay, I'm old. Like, well, how did this happen? But Jalen, he made some plays for us last year. Now, we had some, you have some plays that break, and he's that guy in the middle of the field that knocked down some of those big runs that we had late in the year that would have been touchdowns if he didn't make that play. So I can't wait to watch him develop. Matthews outside, one of our corners, Jermaine, he's a fiery, aggressive, get up on you. He started for us last year. And then Peyton Pierce, who will sit in the middle of our defense this year as the Mike linebacker and run the show. So I'm excited to see him, turn this defense, which was Sonny's in the middle as the Mike linebacker, now into Peyton Pierce, and to see what he does as he builds that front. We've got some new guys that came in, James Smith, who transferred in from Alabama, Quay Russo, who came to us from Alabama, John Walker, along with Edric Houston inside. So that front group for me right now, I'm excited to see where this goes. We had another great linebacker, Christian from Wisconsin, another big guy, kind of those big linebackers that I like. So I'm excited for this group. But it's another new group. It's amazing, just the turnover that we have. So we got a lot of work to do. We got a lot of stuff to kind of put together here. But it's a good young group, and I'm excited to get working with them.
I know NIL makes it tricky, and I know people, they roll their eyes at how these players bounce around. I would argue last year's college football season was one of the greatest that I've ever watched. And Indiana's story, as much as it bothers you guys in the Big Ten, it was pretty cool to see. I feel like college football is in a great space as someone who coached in the NFL for all those years. And He's getting into the college game, which feels like the wild, wild west. Is there a case to be made that college football is just fine and is only going to get better?
I'm excited for next year. I think we're coming off a great college football season. So we're going to build off that energy. I think the matchups, I think the playoff system, watching guys, come on rosters that are new, that excitement. Mm-hmm. You cannot beat college game day atmosphere. For me, my family, my kids had never seen that before. And when you go to the shoe and it's Texas in week 1 and there's 110 inside the stadium and probably 80 outside the stadium.
I've never been.
You got it. All right, well, let's put it on the calendar. Let's get you out here next year.
I've never been. Who do you open with this year?
Opens is Ball State, but then we go to Texas, and then we got to run. We got to run to some teams coming in.
Let me hear.
It's going to be dynamic for sure. We'll get some of the big ones in. Oregon's coming in. We got to go to SC. Certainly, a team up north. That'll be a big one. So we can come into the shoe and see that one.
Yeah, you guys took care of business with those guys this year. That was fine. Yeah,
it was a good one.
That was it. I so appreciate you coming on. I know you're busy, and this is so great. I am so excited to see these guys get drafted and then to see what Ohio State fields next year. But more than anything, you look healthy, you look happy, you look energized. Matt, I'm fired up for you, man.
I appreciate it. You're such a good friend, and obviously we go back a long way. So as soon as you said, "Hey, what do you think?" I was like, I'm going to go hang out with my buddy. Like, we're going to do that. Absolutely. So we got to get you out here, man. It'd be great to see you in person.
Maybe the pro day. When is the pro day? Do you know?
It should be the 25th, Wednesday.
Okay. Potentially. Let's see.
Come on, let's go.
See if I can make the case to ESPN, and I'll just hang out with you. We'll be drinking beers. We'll have a good time. Yeah. Matt Patricia, thank you, as always, Ohio State defensive coordinator, longtime NFL coach. Thanks for joining the Schrager Hour, man.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Our next guest is a guy whose work I've always long admired. I think he's amazing on the Eagles beat and just a tremendous writer, but he's also got a new book out called Leap Year, and it was the Philadelphia Eagles' ascent to Super Bowl champions. He wrote the book, and Brandon Graham wrote the foreword. He's on the beat with the Eagles. He's excellent for the Athletic. Zach Berman, welcome to the Schrager Hour.
I appreciate it. Great to be on, and thanks for the introduction.
Yeah, dude, there's a lot of people on your beat, and everyone is, is blaming the Philly media cycle for what happened to Kevin Patullo and why all the stuff went down. I look at it, I'm like, there might be no more exciting, unpredictable, fun job as a beat reporter than covering the Philadelphia Eagles. You've done it for quite some time. When you look at this job that you have and following this team, it is different than the other 31 markets.
It is. Now, so I'm going into year 15, and I covered the Giants before this, not for 15 years, but for 2 years. And obviously, New York's a passionate market. The difference is that it's almost fragmented in New York, right? You get the Jets, the Giants, the Yankees, the Mets. You go on down the list. In Philly, it's the Eagles every single day. I was driving my kids to school this morning, and they were talking about how the Eagles are going to underachieve this season and not make the playoffs on the radio.
Not knowing the roster.
It's March 4th. It's March 4th, right? But the passion of the fan base is what makes this so much fun to cover. I've spoken to players about this. I've spoken to coaches, executives about this. It's a tough place to play, but when they win, it's obviously rewarding. And from a reporter's perspective, all you want is interest, and there's interest every day from player 1 to player 70 on the roster.
Yeah, and I mean, I saw you at Combine briefly walking by and immediately clicked. I'm like, I want to get Zach on before all the free agency stuff. But primarily, I'm looking at the free agency storylines. I'm doing Get Up every morning, and it's like, all right, we'll start the show with A.J. Brown, obviously. Yeah. Let's talk about the rest of the team. Like every day, it's our A block. Yeah. You had a comment in an article or a tweet this week where you're like, he's actually been around the team more. He's in good headspace. Like, I'm fascinated. Just give us lay of the land. 6 days from free agency. A.J. Brown, Philadelphia Eagles, where are we at?
Well, this is real, right? I mean, and it's real in the sense that there's a possibility he could get moved. Howie, obviously, he's not hanging up the phone. Right. And so once you establish that something's for sale, it's just a matter of the price. He's not going to give A.J. Brown away, nor should he. And I'll kind of back up here and say that the Eagles don't want to move on from A.J. Brown, nor should they, because he's an elite player. But this could be a matter of A.J. forcing the issue. And I think you have to separate the business from the personal. From a personal level, inside that building, they rave about A.J. Brown. Right?
Really?
to, yeah, I think in terms of the interactions that a lot of people have on a personal level. From a football perspective, I think this is more complicated in terms of what AJ might want, the offense that the Eagles run. So that's where I think it's, when I say it's not animosity driven, in the sense that you sometimes have like, diva type wide receivers, and that's not AJ. He's passionate. Like, there's no doubt about that. But I think this could come down to just kind of disagreement as far as like what's best for his career.
As we talk about Howie, and you've covered him 15 years, and I've known him many, many years, I always say he's always listening, but he's very rarely trading for it's usually he's adding assets. Yeah. This would be a rare one where it's like, all right, you trade AJ Brown. I would imagine and Howie wants to win every deal, he's not going to do it for a 3rd round pick.
No, you're correct about that. And Howie's very good too at establishing a market. And you are correct. He usually likes to acquire these players, but he's had situations, whether it was Carson Wentz, whether it's Hassan Reddick, where he knows how to generate a market for players. And I think the stage we're in right now is the negotiation stage, right? Is where you're asking for X, teams don't want to give X, teams are offering Y, and you're trying to figure out where that middle is. And what I try to do sometimes as a reporter, and I make the mistake almost of, you hear this, you hear that, and you're beholden to what you hear. If you back up sometimes and just look at it practically, there are multiple AFC teams that are interested in AJ Brown, contenders, and oftentimes when you have more than one team interested, it becomes a seller's market. And if I were the New England Patriots, I wouldn't want the Buffalo Bills to get him. If I were the Buffalo Bills, I wouldn't want the New England Patriots to get him. If I were the Baltimore Ravens, I wouldn't want either of those teams to get him. And so, if you're Howie Roseman, you're sitting here, you're asking for a high price, and what you want is a market to generate, and then you figure it out from there. It's no different than negotiations in your fantasy basketball league, or buying a house or anything like that.
AJ Brown, I like that you're saying that there is no animosity and that he's a team guy in the locker room. I think the impression from the outside is him reading a book, him complaining on the sideline, and then you heard stories that him and Jalen Hurts, who came in as best friends, had a falling out. Like, it's so hard for us, I'm still living in New York, but also the fans, to decipher what's a tweet, what's a erroneous report, and what's from real. And I think, as someone in my seat, I'm not there every day. All I could do is talk to my sources in Philly who say the same things, that like, AJ's not a bad guy and he's not a bad teammate.
Yeah, he's passionate though. And there are times where his words, I don't want to say get him in trouble, but it creates a story, right? You're a star wide receiver, and if you go on social media after a game, or you're on a streaming network during the week and you're voicing displeasure, like, that's going to be the big story. That's what's going to lead talk radio. That's going to be that's going to be what all of us ask about. It's the nature of that role. But I think some of it comes from, obviously a passionate place, but I think there's a real football conversation here, in the sense that AJ's been on, and I'll say, I can't speak for AJ Brown, obviously, but AJ Brown's been on record saying that he wants to put a stamp on being the best receiver in the league. He won the Super Bowl already. And he said, like, that wasn't as fulfilling as he thought it would be. He wants to be the best receiver in the league. And so you look at it, does he believe that the scheme, the personnel, allow him to be the best quarterback in the league? And there is a thought that the way the Eagles need to win is by playing a certain type of offense. And that type of offense might not be what makes AJ Brown the best receiver in the league. And I personally think, I've covered, Saquon Barkley said this. Don't take my word. Saquon Barkley has said the 2 best players on the team are AJ Brown and Lane Johnson. AJ is so enormously talented, and he probably has a window here where it's like 2 years left, 3 years left of like this elite talent level. He probably wants to maximize that. And I can't speak for AJ, but I can understand where you say, all right, where can I be the best receiver in the league? Now, if I were the Eagles, I would do everything I can to convince AJ that's in Philadelphia, because they're not the same team without him. But, that's, I think, at the crux of what's going on here.
Couple other questions, and then we'll wrap. Sean Mannion, they interviewed 17 different offensive coordinators. They chose a guy who's never called a play in his life and felt like a out of nowhere hire for the Philadelphia Eagles. What have you heard about Mannion in the couple of weeks since he's been hired? 32 years old, quarterbacks coach for the Packers. But I don't know. Sean Mannion is going to be the guy. Let's hear.
Yeah. So I think at the start of the search, this was not the outcome that they expected. But obviously, when Mike McDaniel goes elsewhere, when Brian Dable goes elsewhere, they have an earnest search, like you said. And I think there's something to be said about the fact that someone wins you over in the interview process, that you talk to them, you like their ideas. Nick Sirianni originally went into this thinking established play caller, then he adjusted from there. I've heard overwhelmingly positive things about Sean Mannion in terms of the type of teammate he was when he was a player. He obviously only has 2 years of coaching experience, but has 9 years of playing experience. And you know this well. When you're a backup quarterback for that long and you've never really been a starter, you have to have value in that quarterback room. The Eagles were really interested as the search went on in this Shanahan McVay type offense. And there's sometimes danger in hiring a scheme and not a mind, but there is a lot of overwhelmingly positive things here to like about Mannion. But you hit it on the head. This is not a job that is on the job training. The Eagles need to win big next year, and there's no proof of concept yet that Sean Mannion can do that. And that's the risk here. But I think that's the swing that the Eagles took and the swing that they were willing to take to try to evolve this offense.
Stoutland, losing him, is that a overblown big deal, or is it appropriate people panicking about the loss of Jeff Stoutland?
I don't think it's overblown. He's the best position coach I've ever been around. Now, obviously, he's been here for 13 years, and you just look at the Hall of Famers that he's developed, the All Pros that he's developed, and I've always said that, like, Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, they deserve credit for the players they became, not Jeff Stoutland. But the best thing I can say about Jeff Stoutland is that whatever talent you have, he maximizes that ability. Look at Brandon look at Brandon Brooks before he got here and Brandon Brooks' time here. Look at Mekhi Becton. Look at Halapulivati Vaitai. Like, whatever ability you have, he's going to maximize that ability. But I think, too, that there was a distinction made between the offensive line coach and the run game coordinator, right? And they were trying to evolve the offense. They were trying to evolve the run game. And we could have a legitimate conversation about whether that was merited. I mean, Saquon Barkley had a historic running season in this rushing, with these blocking concepts, with these rushing concepts. I saw LaShawn McCoy do it under Jeff Stoutland. I've seen DeAndre Swift do it under but this is the direction they're going. But I think it's not overblown. The Eagles are going to miss him. And the other thing I'll add is that the Eagles are going to draft offensive line heavy this year. And for 13 years, we knew the types of offensive linemen they can go after because Stout can develop them. Yeah. Now, from a developmental perspective, we'll see how Chris Cooper does, but it's a little bit more of a question.
The last thing I'm going to ask you is an interesting one, because the player report cards were not supposed to come out, but the New York Times and the Athletic and the ESPN, they got them and they posted them. And I thought it was really interesting that Nick Sirianni got an A from the players as far as head coach goes. Take us through that a little bit, the Sirianni of it all, and what you see on a day-to-day basis and the way the players respond. That was of all the grades given of the 32 teams in the 10 categories, Sirianni getting an A is something that stood out to me.
You're correct to point that out. And I think that speaks to the popularity I wouldn't even say popularity, the approval rating in the locker room, like the things that fans don't get to see. And I think sometimes we focus too much on the play calling, like who's calling plays. But being a head coach, you're the leader of a locker room, you're the leader of a coaching staff, and there's a lot of interpersonal dynamics. You have to manage up, obviously, with your front office. You have to manage down with your players. There's a lot that's on Nick Sirianni's plate on a day-to-day basis, and I think that players have responded to him ever since 2021. When they start off the season in a tough spot, they rebound to make the playoffs. They had a bad year in 2023. They underachieved this year, I would say, relative to their talent. But in 5 years here, he's been to 2 Super Bowls. He's won 1 Super Bowl. He's had double-digit wins in 4 of those years. He's made the playoffs all 5 of those years. I can think of probably 28 to 29 teams that would sign up for that type of record.
Yeah. All right. In closing, the book, I got a copy of it. It's a great relive of what was a miracle season in Philly. Now that we're a year removed, take us through the book and what you've learned in the years since it came out.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. I think the big thing there is like how a roster is put together, and I think that's timeless. You see how they rebounded from that 2023 season, but also like I try to really take the reader under the helmet and behind the scenes inside that locker room, but also like get to know Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie and Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts and Lane Johnson and AJ Brown and Zach Bond and Darius Slay. There's and Jalen Carter. There's cutaway chapters on all those guys where you get to find out like little tidbits about them that I think you only pick up when you're around them every day. So you can see how the season came together. You can find out what happened week 15 against Pittsburgh. But what I think what really I guess resonates is like who and why this team won the Super Bowl.
Special team. And they've had 2 special teams in the last decade. You've covered both those squads. Zach, I appreciate you coming on, especially on short notice. And I feel like the AJ Brown thing, we'll be watching any day now. It could happen or it could just not. And he could just be a Philadelphia Eagle, right?
Yeah, we call that Wednesday in Philadelphia, right? When anything big can happen. That's part of covering Howie.
That's it. Zach Berman from The Athletic, thank you for joining the Schrager Hour.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Great episode of the Schrager Hour. We appreciate you guys listening. Stay tuned to ESPN and, of course, on social media for all the latest in trades and free agency. As we were recording this, Trent McDuffie got traded from the Kansas City Chiefs to Los Angeles Rams. I've been on record that I thought there was a window there, 2 to 3 years, where Trent McDuffie was up there with Pat Surtain as the best corner in football. Last year did not have a great season. Actually got bullied a little bit by CeeDee Lamb in that Thanksgiving game, which kind of opened my eyes a bit. I'm not sure who the winner of this trade is, but I do know this. The Los Angeles Rams are going to go defense heavy, both in the draft and in this offseason, because of the way that defense failed them down the stretch against the Seahawks in not only the playoff game and the NFC Championship game, but also in that regular season game in the fourth quarter. Trent McDuffie's a stud. And it so fits the ethos of the Rams of F those picks and the whole deal. McDuffie can play. He is an elite number 1 corner in this league, and you add him to a defense that is a few pieces away, like it from the Rams spot. And then from the Chiefs spot, we don't know what the Chiefs are going to look like in the next 3 to 5 years. You get a first-round pick here, no doubt. That makes sense to me. I cannot wait for the next 6 to 7 days. If you're watching this on ESPN on Friday, maybe some other deals have happened in the last couple of days, but keep an eye on everything because the rosters are going to be built now, and this is where championship teams are formed. Remember last year at this time, Geno Smith was a Seattle Seahawk, and they didn't have DeMarcus Lawrence, and they did not have some of the other star players on that team, as DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett were the expected number 1 and number 2 wide receivers. Things can change and fortunes can be changed with those roster moves. Till next week, thank you for listening. It's the Schrager Hour, and many thanks to our guests, Matt Patricia and Zach Berman.